Hello there, and welcome. I am so glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe you have had a long day. Maybe your mind is still busy with thoughts that will not stop. Maybe you are tired but cannot seem to fall asleep. That is okay. You are here now, and this is a safe place where you can let everything go. You do not need to do anything special. Just let your body sink into wherever you're sitting or lying down. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing slow down. You do not even need to listen carefully to every word I say. Your mind can drift in and out. It can wander wherever it wants to go. There is no test at the end. There is nothing you need to remember. This is just time for you to rest and let your thoughts become quiet. We're going to move slowly tonight through 100 facts about the brain. But these are not just facts from a textbook. These are glimpses into the mystery of who you are. We will discover how your brain tricks you into seeing things that are not real, how it can light up with love or go quiet with calm, how it builds your sense of time and makes you feel like you are living inside your body. We will learn about people who remember every single day of their lives and others who cannot recognize the faces of people they love. We will see how music reshapes the brain and how dreams might be the mind cleaning itself while you sleep. So take one more deep breath, let it out slowly, and when you are ready, let us begin this gentle journey into the most mysterious place in the universe, the place that lives inside you. Fact 1. The brain predicts the future a few seconds ahead of reality. Your brain is not just sitting back and watching the world happen. It is always guessing what will come next. Every single moment, your brain builds a picture of what it thinks is about to happen. It guesses the next sound you will hear. It guesses how a ball will move through the air. It guesses the next word someone is about to say. Scientists have done brain scans and found something amazing. The brain starts getting ready for something before your senses actually notice it happening. This helps you catch a ball without thinking. It helps you understand people talking even when there is noise around you. It helps you jump out of the way of danger almost instantly. Without this ability, life would feel broken and choppy, like watching a video that keeps freezing. But instead, your brain smooths everything out. It leans forward into the future just a tiny bit, making sure your experience feels smooth and continuous and alive. Fact 2. Scientists have rebuilt images directly from brain signals. One of the most incredible things happening in science right now is that researchers can look at brain activity and figure out what someone is seeing. They use special brain scans and computer programs. They have successfully rebuilt rough pictures of what people are looking at. Shapes, faces, even short video clips. All of this comes from nothing but the patterns of electrical activity in the brain. The pictures are blurry and not perfect, but they are clear enough that you can recognize what they are supposed to be. This tells us that thoughts and what we see leave fingerprints in the brain. Fingerprints that can be measured and read. Maybe one day we will be able to record dreams. Maybe we will be able to see memories like watching a movie. Maybe we will even be able to share what we are thinking in ways that feel like science fiction today. For now, these experiments show us something beautiful. The private movie theatre inside your mind, which has always been hidden from everyone else, can be glimpsed through the shimmering electrical language of the brain. Fact 3. Your brain can trick you into seeing things that are not there. What you see is not exactly what is really out there in the world. Sometimes your brain invents details, colours, or patterns that do not actually exist. You have probably seen optical illusions before. Lines that look bent but are actually straight. Colours that look different but are really the same. Shapes that seem to move even though nothing is moving at all. But this goes deeper than just fun tricks. In certain situations, like when you are very tired, very stressed, or sick, the brain can create full hallucinations, sounds that are not there. Sights that do not exist, even whole scenes that feel completely real. This happens because your brain is always trying to make sense of incomplete information. It fills in the gaps with its best guess. Most of the time this works great and makes your vision smooth and useful, but sometimes the brain guesses wrong and creates something out of nothing. It is a reminder that what we call reality is always being filtered and rebuilt inside the quiet theatre of the mind. Fact 4. People with split brains sometimes act as if two minds share one body. There are rare medical cases where doctors have to cut the connection between the two halves of the brain. This bundle of fibres is called the corpus callosum, and it lets the left and right sides talk to each other. When it gets cut, something very strange can happen. Each half of the brain starts to act a little bit on its own, like two different people living in the same body. One hand might reach for a shirt while the other hand pushes it away. A person might say out loud that they did not see something, but their hand points right at it anyway. These cases teach us that the left and right sides of the brain do different jobs. They also show us that our feeling of being one single unified person is actually very delicate. It is a construction. Underneath the surface, the brain is really a team of processes working together. Cut the links between them and the hidden truth comes out. We are not as singular as we feel. Fact 5. The brain sometimes creates completely fake stories to explain gaps. Your brain hates not knowing things. When something does not make sense, the brain will often just make up an explanation. And you will believe it without even questioning it. This is called confabulation. It happens when the brain fills in gaps in memory, or explains actions in ways that feel true, but are actually false. For example, people with certain brain injuries might insist they ate breakfast even though they did not. Or they might confidently explain why they chose something, even though the real reason was hidden from them. Confabulation is not the same as lying. The person really believes what they are saying. It is just the brain trying to keep a smooth story going. And this does not only happen to people with brain damage. Normal everyday memory works the same way. It smooths over mistakes. It stitches fragments together into a story that makes sense. Much of what you think of as memory is not a perfect recording. It is a careful made-up story crafted by the mind to make you feel like your life is continuous and clear. Fact 6. Some people can remember every day of their lives in detail. For most of us, memory is blurry and selective. Yesterday blends into last week. Last month fades into last year. But a handful of people have an extraordinary gift. It is called highly superior autobiographical memory. These people can recall the weather, conversations, and even what they ate on any given day of their lives going back decades. You can ask them about a random date from 20 years ago, and they can tell you what day of the week it was, what news was happening, and what they were wearing. Brain scans show that their memory networks are unusually active and densely connected, though scientists still do not completely understand why this happens. Interestingly, this gift can sometimes feel like a burden. When you cannot forget anything, you relive painful experiences just as vividly as happy ones. Their minds act like living archives, keeping a detailed, endless timeline of existence. It is a reminder of how different human memory can be from person to person. Fact 7. The brain generates enough electricity to light a small bulb. Your brain runs on chemistry and biology, but it is also an electrical machine. Right now, billions of tiny cells called neurons are firing inside your head. They send signals across tiny gaps using quick jolts of electricity. If you could gather up all the voltage from this buzzing network, it would be enough to light a small light bulb, about 20 watts of power. It is a strange and humbling thought. Inside your skull, every thought, every memory, every feeling depends on faint currents, flickering across tissue that is softer than tofu. The fact that the brain runs on electricity also means we can read it with machines. Technologies like EEG can capture the faint rhythms of brainwaves and turn invisible activity into patterns we can see and measure. These patterns show when you are awake, when you're dreaming, and when you're deeply asleep. The idea that the place where you live, the seat of your mind, is also a living electrical field glowing faintly with energy is both eerie and beautiful. Fact 8. Your brain is more active at night than during the day. You might think that sleep is when the brain shuts down and rests, but the truth is the opposite. In many stages of sleep, especially during rapid eye movement sleep, the brain is buzzing with activity. In some regions, it is even more active than when you're awake. Neurons fire in wild patterns that help sort through memories, process emotions, and create the strange movies we call dreams. This hidden work is why you wake up feeling refreshed. It is why sleep deprivation makes you foggy and moody so quickly. It is also why you sometimes wake up with solutions to problems or flashes of creativity. Your brain has been solving things in the background while you are not paying attention. Sleep is not about shutting down. It is about shifting modes. The body lies still, but the brain is a busy workshop inside, repairing, sorting, and reorganizing. Every night as you rest, your brain is preparing you for another day. Fact 9. Blind brains can repurpose the visual cortex for touch and sound. When someone is blind, especially from birth, the brain does not let the visual cortex just sit there doing nothing. Instead, it puts that huge area of neurons to work doing other things. It uses them to boost other senses like touch, sound, and smell. This rewiring is why blind people often develop extraordinary abilities. They can read Braille with incredible speed. They can identify tiny sounds that most people would never notice. Brain scans show that when a blind person touches something or listens carefully, their visual cortex lights up as if they were seeing. This incredible flexibility is called neuroplasticity, and it shows that the brain is not rigidly locked into one job. It is astonishingly flexible and ready to reorganize itself, depending on what the body needs. It suggests that hidden inside every brain is untapped potential, just waiting to be awakened if the right circumstances come along. The brain is not a fixed map. It is a living landscape that can rewrite itself. Fact 10. People who lose one sense often develop superhuman abilities in another. When one door to the world closes, others can swing wide open. People who lose their hearing may develop sharper vision and notice flickers of movement with amazing sensitivity. People who lose their sight may pick up on faint textures or sounds with astonishing precision. This is not just a nice idea, it is measurable. The brain reallocates its resources and expands the regions devoted to the senses that remain. In some cases, the abilities seem almost superhuman, like being able to recognize people just by the sound of their footsteps, or navigating spaces using subtle echoes like a bat. These adaptations show that the brain is always searching for balance. It recalibrates itself to maximize survival and perception. It reminds us that human potential is deeply elastic. Hidden abilities lie dormant inside all of us, just waiting for the brain to bring them forward. In every mind lives a silent promise, the power to change, adapt, and evolve in ways that defy what we expect. Fact 11. Some people see sounds or hear colours through synesthesia. For most of us, the senses stay separate. We hear music, we see colours, we taste food. But for people with synesthesia, the boundaries blur in beautiful ways. A sound might be tinged with colour. Letters might appear shaded with different hues. Numbers might carry textures or even personalities. To them, this is completely normal. The world is just richer with these cross-sensory overlays. Scientists believe this happens when neural pathways between sensory regions are unusually connected. Signals blend together in ways they do not for most people. Some synesthetes report tasting shapes or feeling the texture of sounds. This rare phenomenon is not just a curiosity. It can actually boost memory and creativity because experiences become multi-layered and unforgettable. Famous artists, composers, and writers have described having synesthesia, hinting that it may have fueled some of humanity's most brilliant creative work. It is a reminder that perception is not fixed. It is deeply individual. Each brain paints its own version of reality. Factor 12. The brain can adapt to seeing the world upside down. Imagine wearing special goggles that flip everything upside down. At first, it would feel impossible to do anything. Walking, reaching, even pouring water would be a disaster. But after days or even weeks, something amazing happens. The brain begins to adapt. It rewires perception so thoroughly that the ups and down world starts to feel normal. You can walk around and function as if everything is right side up again. Then when the goggles come off, the adjustment flips again. Normal vision feels bizarrely reversed until the brain recalibrates once more. This experiment has been done many times over the past century, and it shows the brain's profound plasticity, its ability to remap sensory input to fit reality. It means that perception is not simply about the eyes. It is about how the brain interprets and organizes information. Reality is flexible. The brain stitches it together in whatever way makes sense. The fact that the world can literally turn upside down and then feel right again is proof of just how adaptable the brain truly is. Fact 13. The brain creates a constant stream of predictions about what happens next. Your brain is not just reacting to the world. It is constantly guessing what comes next. Every sound, every movement, every glance is met with predictions about what should follow. When someone speaks, your brain anticipates the end of their sentence before the words arrive. When you walk through a familiar room in the dark, your mind sketches out where objects should be, even though you cannot see them. This predictive coding smooths out reality and lets you navigate without feeling constant surprise. Sometimes the predictions misfire. That is when you get optical illusions where what you expect overrides what is really there. But most of the time, these guesses save you precious milliseconds, and those tiny fractions of a second can mean the difference between safety and danger. The brain's endless forecasting makes experience feel continuous, as if reality flows smoothly rather than arriving in choppy bursts. In a way, you're always living slightly ahead of the moment. Your mind is leaning into what has not yet come, blurring the present and future into one seamless stream. Fact 14. People can have out-of-body experiences triggered by brain stimulation. Some people describe the eerie sensation of floating above their own body and watching themselves from outside. Mystics and spiritual teachers have written about this for centuries, but neuroscience has discovered that the sensation can sometimes be triggered artificially. Electrical stimulation of a specific brain region called the temporal parietal junction can cause patients to feel as if they are leaving their body even when they are lying perfectly still. This region helps integrate vision, balance, and body awareness. When those signals get mixed up or misaligned, the self can feel displaced. The experience suggests that our sense of being inside ourselves is actually a construction woven together by the brain from sensory inputs. When those inputs conflict, the self can feel like it is somewhere else entirely. While such experiences remain deeply mysterious and often feel profound to the people who have them, they point to a simple truth. Even the most intimate feeling of being you is carefully generated by the brain, and it can shift, unravel, or transform under the right conditions. Identity itself is a fragile balancing act of neural signals. Fact 15. Electrical brain stimulation can make people laugh against their will. During brain surgery, doctors sometimes apply tiny electrical currents to brain tissue to map out what each part does. In rare cases, when certain regions get stimulated, patients suddenly burst into uncontrollable laughter. They are fully aware of how strange it is, but they cannot stop. They often describe the moment as feeling inexplicably funny, even though nothing humorous is actually happening. Other stimulations can bring tears, fear, or a flood of old memories rushing back. These discoveries show how emotions, which feel so personal and meaningful, can be switched on like lights when the right circuits get triggered. It does not make emotions any less real. But it does reveal that joy, sorrow, and awe are rooted in precise biological machinery. The idea that laughter, that purest expression of delight, can be summoned by a gentle zap of electricity is both unsettling and wondrous. It blurs the line between the mechanical workings of the body and the deeply human experiences we treasure. Fact 16. A brain lesion made brain lesion. A man believed his parents were imposters. In a strange condition known as Capgras delusion, patients recognize the faces of their loved ones but insist they are imposters, convincing doubles pretending to be the real people. One man after a brain injury looked at his parents and believed they had been replaced by strangers who just looked like them. Scientists think this happens because the visual pathway that recognizes faces gets disconnected from the emotional centers of the brain. The face is seen and identified correctly, but it fails to trigger the warm, familiar feeling that should come with it. The mismatch convinces the mind that something sinister has occurred. Cases like this reveal how fragile the links are between recognition, memory, and feeling. To the person affected, the delusion feels utterly real. It is a terrifying fracture in the fabric of trust and love. It shows that our sense of reality, and even the bonds we feel with family, depend on the seamless cooperation of circuits hidden deep inside the brain. Fact 17. Damage to a specific brain area once made a woman unable to feel fear. In one extraordinary case, a woman with damage to her amygdala became nearly fearless. The amygdala is a small almond-shaped structure that is central to processing fear. Without it working properly, she could handle snakes and spiders without flinching. She could wander through dark alleys alone at night. She could watch horror movies and feel nothing. While this might sound liberating, fear is actually a survival tool. It guides us away from danger. Without it, she was more vulnerable to real threats. The case gave neuroscientists deep insight into how emotions are tied to specific physical structures. Fear, which we often experience as a vague sense of dread, is in fact anchored in biology. When those structures are damaged, the emotion can vanish entirely. It shows both the power and the fragility of our inner lives. Something as primal and universal as fear can be erased by the smallest injury in the brain's delicate circuitry. Fact 18. The brain can react to danger before you're even aware of it. Imagine stepping off a curb and jerking back as a car rushes by. Only later do you realize what happened. This lightning speed comes from pathways in the brain that bypass conscious thought entirely. Visual information can travel directly to the amygdala and trigger a cascade of fight or flight responses before you have any time to think. Your heart races. Your muscles tense. You leap to safety in under half a second. Conscious awareness catches up only afterward, stitching together a story around the reflex. These hidden circuits prove that survival depends on reaction times far faster than deliberate thought allows. It also shows that your experience of life is always slightly delayed. Unconscious processes guide you first, and then fill in the narrative so it feels like you are fully in control the whole time. In this way, the brain is both protector and storyteller. It acts in your defense and then quietly fills in the story so everything makes sense. Fact 19. Einstein's brain had unusual folds and connections. After Albert Einstein died, his brain was preserved and studied. Researchers found unusual features in its structure. The parietal lobes, which are linked to spatial reasoning and mathematics, were notably enlarged. Certain regions showed unique folds and patterns not seen in most people. His corpus callosum, the bridge connecting the two halves of the brain, appeared thicker than average. This suggests enhanced communication between different brain areas. While no single feature explains his genius, the differences hint at a biological foundation for his extraordinary imagination. Yet Einstein himself always emphasized curiosity, persistence, and playfulness as the true engines of discovery. His brain reminds us that structure matters, but the mind's brilliance also grows from habits of thought, wonder, and relentless exploration. It is a blend of nature and nurture, the physical canvas of the brain shaped by the creative strokes of a lifetime spent asking questions and dreaming about the universe. Fact 20. London taxi drivers grow larger brain regions for navigation. To qualify as a London taxi driver, you must memorize something called the knowledge. It includes thousands of streets and landmarks across the entire city. Brain scans have shown that these drivers develop enlarged hippocampi. The hippocampus is the brain's navigation center. The more years spent driving and navigating, the larger this region becomes. It is a clear demonstration that experience reshapes anatomy. This discovery was one of the first to show neuroplasticity in adults at such a striking scale. It means the brain is not fixed after childhood. It continues to mold itself in response to challenge and practice. Whether you are learning music, language, or the map of a city, the brain lays down new structures to meet new demands. For the taxi drivers, this adaptation becomes a living etched into neural tissue. Their minds literally carry a miniature version of London inside them. It is a testament to the way effort and practice sculpt the very architecture of the brain. Fact 21. Music can reshape the brain more than almost any other activity. When you play an instrument, your brain engages nearly every major region at once. Motor areas control your fingers. Auditory regions process the sounds you're making. Emotional centers respond to melody and harmony. Over time, this full brain workout leaves a physical imprint. Studies show that musicians often have larger corpus callosums. That is the bundle of fibers connecting both halves of the brain. This allows for faster communication across the brain. Regions involved in hearing, memory, and motor coordination also grow denser and more active. Even just listening to music can strengthen neural connections and enhance mood regulation and memory. It is no wonder that music therapy is used to help people recover from strokes and emotional trauma. Music is not just entertainment. It is a form of structured sound that literally sculpts the brain. It rewires circuits and leaves behind echoes of rhythm and harmony, woven into the very architecture of the mind. Fact 22. Creativity lights up different circuits than logical thinking. Logic and creativity often feel like opposites, yet both rely on the brain's remarkable networks. When you solve a math problem, the brain's executive and analytical circuits take charge. They emphasize order and precision. But when you paint, write, or improvise, completely different circuits spark to life, especially in the default mode network and areas that link distant concepts together. Brain scans show that creative thought involves unusual patterns of connectivity. It is like a jazz session where unexpected regions of the brain play together. Interestingly, the most creative moments often occur when analytical areas quiet down. This allows looser, freer associations to form. This balance explains why creativity often blossoms when you're relaxed, daydreaming, or just before sleep. The brain's ability to switch modes from razor-sharp analysis to open-ended invention is what makes human thought both practical and profoundly imaginative. We can engineer rockets and compose symphonies with the same neural canvas. Fact 23. Eureka moments come from unusual synchronization of brain waves. The sudden flash of insight, the aha moment, feels like magic. But neuroscience shows it comes from a shift in brainwave patterns. Just before a breakthrough, the brain often enters a burst of gamma activity. This is a rhythm associated with high-level integration across distant regions of the brain. These waves allow connections to form between ideas that previously seemed completely unrelated. It is as if the brain suddenly harmonizes and produces clarity from chaos. Such moments are unpredictable, but they can be encouraged by relaxation, play, or stepping away from the problem entirely. That is why solutions often appear in the shower, on a walk, or in a dream. The insight feels sudden, but in reality your brain has been working beneath awareness. It has been quietly assembling the puzzle pieces. When the synchronization finally locks into place, the solution surges into consciousness. It feels like a neural spark, like a gift from nowhere. Fact 24. Your brain builds entirely new pathways when you learn something. Every time you learn a skill, memorize a fact, or practice a movement, your brain physically changes. Neurons reach out to form new connections called synapses. They strengthen the pathways that support the new behavior. Over time, repeated use makes these circuits more efficient. It is as if the brain is laying down a well-worn trail through a forest. This physical remodeling is called neuroplasticity, and it underlies all growth and learning. Remarkably, even simple repetition like practicing scales on a piano or rehearsing vocabulary leaves behind new structures in the brain. These pathways can expand or shrink depending on whether you use them or not. Use it or lose it is literally true for neural circuits. The process never stops. It continues into old age, though more gradually as you get older. Each lesson you absorb rewires you slightly. It leaves permanent traces in the architecture of your mind, shaping who you are today and who you are still becoming. Fact 25. Stress can physically shrink parts of the brain, while short bursts of stress can sharpen your focus and prepare your body for action. Chronic stress takes a heavy toll on the brain. Prolonged exposure to stress hormones like cortisol can actually shrink the hippocampus. That is a region critical for memory and learning. Stress can also weaken connections in the prefrontal cortex, which impairs decision-making and emotional regulation. At the same time, stress may enlarge the amygdala, which intensifies fear and anxiety responses. This rewiring creates a vicious cycle where stress makes the brain even more vulnerable to further stress. The good news is that the brain is resilient. Practices like mindfulness, exercise, and spending time with people you care about can reverse some of these changes and restore balance. Stress literally reshapes the mind. But so does recovery. It is a powerful reminder that mental states are not just abstract feelings floating above the brain. They are biological forces carving pathways into its very structure. Fact 26. Meditation can thicken the brain regions linked to calm and focus. Meditation may feel like you're just sitting quietly doing nothing, but inside the brain, deep changes are happening. Brain scans show that regular meditation can actually increase the thickness of the prefrontal cortex. This is the part that helps with attention and controlling emotions. Meditation also makes connections stronger in networks related to empathy and compassion. At the same time, it reduces activity in the amygdala, which helps soften stress and makes you less reactive. Long-term people who meditate often show growth in grey matter density, especially in areas tied to self-awareness and seeing things from different perspectives. These changes happen even in beginners after just a few weeks of practice. This proves that you do not need a lifetime of devotion to see benefits. In a world full of noise and endless distractions, meditation offers a way to literally reshape the brain toward calmness. The quiet repetition of breathing and gentle awareness is enough to build new circuits. It shows that peace of mind is not just a nice feeling, it is actually a skill your brain can develop and grow. Fact 27. Extreme meditation masters can control their body temperature with thought. High in the mountains of the Himalayas, monks practicing very advanced meditation techniques have been observed doing something extraordinary. They can dry wet sheets draped over their shoulders in freezing cold temperatures using only body heat generated by focused thought. Scientists studying this have found that certain meditation practices can actually influence the autonomic nervous system. This system normally runs automatically and controls things like heart rate, blood pressure, and temperature. Brain scans show unusual patterns of activity during these deep meditation states. This suggests that years of disciplined practice can unlock access to bodily processes that are usually considered completely automatic. While very few people ever reach this level of mastery, the experiments reveal something astonishing about the reach of the mind over the body. The idea that focused thought alone can warm your flesh in icy winds feels almost superhuman, and yet it comes from the same human brain we all share. It shows the depth of untapped potential quietly woven into the folds of our minds. Fact 28. Daydreaming activates a special brain network. When your thoughts drift away and you stop paying attention to the world around you, you're not actually switching off. You're switching networks. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network. It is a group of brain regions that light up when you're at rest and not focused on the outside world. This network weaves together memories, imagines possible futures, and explores different scenarios in a kind of inner simulation. Far from being lazy or useless, daydreaming is essential for creativity, problem-solving, and even empathy. It is during these moments of quiet drifting that your brain knits experiences into stories and forms the narrative of your life. The wandering mind is not a distraction from reality, it is an expansion of it. Your brain tests paths you have not yet walked, so the next time your attention slips away, remember that your brain is busy in its own private theatre. It is painting landscapes, rehearsing possible futures, and weaving the fabric of your inner world. Fact 29. Memory is rewritten every time you recall it. We often imagine memory like a video recording that faithfully stores past events, but neuroscience reveals that memory is actually dynamic and flexible. Each time you recall an event, your brain reconstructs it from scattered fragments stored across different regions. In the process, details can be changed, forgotten, or even unintentionally replaced with new information. This phenomenon is called reconsolidation. It means that memory is less like a perfect file and more like a story that gets retold. And with each retelling it changes subtly. This explains why eyewitness testimony can be unreliable. It explains why cherished memories shift and change with time. But it also allows memories to be updated. Traumatic memories can be softened. Learning can be reshaped. In a sense, the past is always alive and being rewritten in the present. Every memory you revisit is not a static recording sitting in storage. It is a living narrative that gets adapted to who you are right now. This proves that your sense of history is itself a work of imagination. Fact 30. Traumatic memories can alter the brain's physical structure. Severe trauma does not only haunt the mind emotionally, it actually imprints itself into the brain's physical anatomy. Post-traumatic stress disorder is associated with a shrunken hippocampus, heightened activity in the amygdala, and weakened control from the prefrontal cortex. These physical changes explain why traumatic memories can feel so vivid, intrusive, and emotionally overwhelming. The brain essentially shifts into a state of constant alert as if danger is always lurking nearby. But research also shows that with therapy, support, and time, some of these structural changes can heal. The hippocampus can regain volume. Regulation pathways can strengthen again. Trauma reshapes the brain in harsh ways, but recovery reshapes it too. Each pathway that gets altered by fear can be counterbalanced by new circuits of safety and resilience. The scars of trauma are written into neural tissue, but so too are the patterns of healing. It is a testament to the brain's enduring capacity for renewal even after the worst experiences. Fact 31. The brain can erase memories under certain conditions. Memory feels permanent and solid, but in reality, it is fragile and changeable. Scientists have found that under certain conditions, especially when memories are brought back up and enter a flexible state called reconsolidation, they can be altered or even erased. In animal studies, specific drugs given at just the right moment can block a memory from being stored again. This effectively deletes it. Though this research is still early and experimental, it raises both hopeful and troubling possibilities. On one hand, it could help weaken traumatic memories for people suffering. On the other hand, it raises ethical concerns about manipulating memory itself. Even without drugs, the brain sometimes erases memories naturally. It prunes away unused connections to make room for new learning. Forgetting is not a flaw or weakness. It is actually a feature, a way to keep the mind uncluttered and focused. It shows that memory is not carved in stone. It is written in sand, always subject to being reshaped, softened, or washed away entirely by the tides of time. Fact 32. Scientists can sometimes trigger lost memories with electrical stimulation. In certain brain surgeries, when doctors place electrodes on specific brain regions and apply gentle electrical stimulation, patients sometimes suddenly recall vivid, long-forgotten memories. A woman might hear her childhood piano lessons as if they are happening right now. A man might relive standing on a familiar street corner from decades earlier. These moments are not vague, fuzzy impressions. They are detailed sensory recreations complete with sounds, smells, and emotions. This effect suggests that even memories we thought were completely gone may still exist in hidden neural traces. They are just waiting for the right spark to bring them back to life. This discovery reveals the incredible depth of the brain's storage capacity. It is like a vast archive far larger than our daily awareness can ever access. While science is nowhere near being able to summon specific memories at will, these glimpses show us something profound. Your past is not truly gone. It is slumbering, embedded deep in the folds of the mind like books on an endless shelf just waiting to be opened again. Fact 33. Memories can be strengthened during sleep with subtle cues. During sleep, your brain is not just resting. It is busy consolidating memory and weaving the day's experiences into lasting form. Experiments show that memories can even be nudged stronger with subtle cues given while you sleep. In one study, people learned word pairs or spatial tasks while a specific sound or smell played in the background. Later, when the same cue was softly presented during deep sleep, those particular memories became stronger. It was as if the brain rehearsed them unconsciously during the night. This phenomenon is called targeted memory reactivation. It highlights how the sleeping brain is actively at work, sorting, strengthening, and sometimes reshaping the information from the day. It suggests that learning does not stop when you close your eyes. In fact, sleep may be the most important stage of learning. The idea that a faint scent or a soft tone can reach into the dreaming brain and solidify memory is both eerie and wondrous. It shows how much is happening beneath the surface while you rest. Fact 34. The brain replays experiences like a movie during dreams. While you sleep, your brain is far from idle. Neurons fire in patterns that closely resemble waking activity, as if replaying the day's experiences like scenes from a film. In animals, scientists have recorded brain cells firing in the exact same sequence during sleep that they did while the animal explored a maze. It is like watching a time-lapse replay compressed and sped up. In humans, dreams often echo fragments of recent life stitched together into surreal narratives. This replay is thought to help consolidate memory by reinforcing learning and reactivating the neural circuits involved. It is as though the brain is editing a movie of your life. It splices together the key frames and saves them to long-term storage. The result is both practical and poetic. The dream world serves as rehearsal and archive. It takes the raw footage of waking life and crafts it into something lasting, a record etched into the mind's hidden vaults while you sleep. Fact 35. Dreams may be the brain's way of cleaning and reorganizing itself. Why do we dream? One fascinating idea is that dreams serve as the brain's nighttime housekeeping. By weaving together strange stories, the brain may be testing associations, pruning weak connections, and strengthening useful ones. This process could explain why dreams often mix completely unrelated images or people together. The brain is reorganizing memory networks, trying out different combinations, discarding some connections and keeping others. The bizarre narratives we experience are just a side effect of this deeper work happening beneath awareness. Some researchers also suggest that dreaming helps regulate emotion by replaying stressful events in safer symbolic forms. Whatever their exact purpose, dreams appear to be much more than idle fantasy. They are the brain's nocturnal workshop, tuning its circuits, washing away the clutter of the day, and reorganizing the mind for clarity and balance. The surreal landscapes of dreams may simply be the visible trace of a hidden process, the brain quietly tending to itself in the darkness. Fact 36. Sleep helps wash away waste from the brain. During the day, your brain produces metabolic waste as it works. This includes proteins that are linked to disorders like Alzheimer's disease. At night, something remarkable happens. The brain cells shrink slightly, which allows cerebrospinal fluid to wash through the tissue like a gentle tide. This system is called the glymphatic system, and it acts like a nightly rinse cycle. It flushes away toxins and restores balance. The process is so effective that even a single night of poor sleep measurably increases waste buildup in the brain. This discovery highlights how vital sleep is not only for memory and mood, but also for the physical health of the brain itself. Just as the body needs rest to heal, the brain needs sleep to cleanse itself. When you drift into slumber, you're not only recharging your energy, you're also bathing the mind in its own silent tide, sweeping away what is no longer needed, and leaving behind a refreshed, clearer landscape for tomorrow's thoughts to grow upon. Fact 37. The brain shrinks slightly during the day and re-expands at night. Your brain subtly changes size over the course of a single day. Brain imaging scans reveal that the brain shrinks slightly during waking hours. It gets compressed by the demands of constant activity. Then it re-expands during sleep as it recovers. This rhythm reflects the ebb and flow of fluid, cellular activity and metabolic processes. It is like a daily tide happening inside the skull. The changes are tiny, just fractions of a percent. But they are significant enough to be measured with sensitive equipment. This may be one reason why you feel foggy and drained after long days and refreshed after good rest. Your brain has literally shifted shape. It contracts under the strain of wakefulness and swells gently back during slumber. This cycle reminds us that the brain is not static stone. It is living tissue constantly in motion, pulsing with fluids, expanding and shrinking like the ocean tide, following the quiet rhythms of day and night in its own hidden dance. Fact 38. Your brain keeps working while you sleep. Far from switching off, your brain stays remarkably busy while you sleep. It sorts through memories and decides which ones to keep. It regulates hormones that control growth and appetite. It fine-tunes immune responses to keep you healthy. It even rehearses skills you learned during the day. Certain stages of sleep, especially rapid eye movement sleep, show brain activity that resembles wakefulness. This hidden labor explains why sleep deprivation so quickly affects mood, memory, and overall health. It also explains the flashes of creativity or sudden clarity that sometimes greet you when you wake up. Your brain has been solving problems in the background while you were unaware. In this sense, sleep is less about shutting down and more about shifting modes. The body rests, but the brain runs its nightly workshop. It repairs, reinforces, and reorganizes. Every night as the body lies still, the brain is a quiet hum of activity, preparing you for another day of being alive. Fact 39. The brain produces psychedelic states on its own even without drugs. Psychedelic visions are not limited to taking substances. The brain can actually generate them spontaneously under certain conditions. Things like sensory deprivation, extended fasting, deep meditation, or even illness can trigger vivid geometric patterns, bright lights, or mystical experiences. Scientists suggest these arise when normal brain rhythms become disrupted. This allows deeper networks to spill chaotic imagery into consciousness. Remarkably, these experiences often involve the same neural pathways that get engaged by psychedelic drugs. This shows that the potential for such visions exists naturally in everyone. The kaleidoscope of the mind is built in, waiting under the surface. This may explain why cultures across history have described visions during trance, prayer, or near-death experiences. The brain itself carries the seeds of altered states. It is capable of producing worlds of light, colour, and profound meaning without any external substance. The capacity for wonder is woven into neural tissue and is part of what makes consciousness so strange and beautiful. Fact 40. Some people can control their dreams with lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is the rare ability to realize you are dreaming while the dream is still happening. With practice, some people can even shape the dream itself. They can fly through imagined skies or have conversations with dream characters. Neuroscientists find that lucid dreaming involves unusual activity in the prefrontal cortex. That is the part of the brain linked to self-awareness and control. Training methods like doing reality checks during the day or setting clear intentions before sleep can increase the chances of having a lucid dream. These experiences feel astonishingly real. They blend the vividness of dreaming with the clarity of being awake. For some people, lucid dreaming is simply playful exploration and fun. For others, it becomes a tool for creativity, working through problems or even overcoming nightmares. The idea that you can wake up inside your own dream and steer the story of the night shows just how thin the boundary is between reality and imagination inside the brain. Fact 41. Your brain holds more connections than all the stars in the Milky Way inside your skull is a network so vast it defies easy comprehension. The human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons. Each one of those can form thousands of connections with other neurons. These connections are called synapses. Altogether, the number of synaptic connections reaches into the hundreds of trillions. That is more than all the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. These connections are not fixed or permanent. They strengthen, weaken, or vanish depending on your experiences. They form the ever-changing map of who you are. Every thought, every memory, every skill you have depends on patterns flowing across this astronomical web. It is humbling to realize that the night sky filled with stars beyond counting is mirrored in miniature inside each of us. The scale suggests that the brain is not just a simple organ, it is a living cosmos of its own. A galaxy of connections endlessly shifting, flickering, and weaving the intricate story of your life. Fact 42. The brain generates hallucinations without any external stimulus. Hallucinations are not always caused by drugs or mental illness. Sometimes the brain just produces them on its own. In sensory deprivation chambers, people often begin to see lights, patterns, or hear phantom sounds after only a few hours. Patients with certain diseases like Parkinson's may glimpse small animals or shadowy figures that are not really there. Even healthy people can experience something called hypnagogic hallucinations as they fall asleep. These are vivid images and sounds conjured entirely by the brain. These experiences happen because perception is not a direct window onto reality. It is a construction assembled from incoming signals mixed with the brain's predictions and expectations. When input falters or circuits misfire, the brain fills the gap with its own creations. Hallucinations remind us that consciousness is not a fixed recording of the world outside. It is a living generative process. At times, the brain becomes its own projector, casting images onto the screen of awareness without any outside world required. Fact 43. A jolt of electricity can change your mood in seconds. The brain runs on electricity, and even a tiny current in just the right spot can alter how you feel almost instantly. In clinical settings, direct stimulation of certain brain regions has been shown to lift depression in moments, replace despair with laughter, or spark intense feelings of calm. A treatment called transcranial magnetic stimulation uses pulses of magnetic fields to similarly nudge mood and thinking patterns. These treatments are being explored as therapies for people with disorders that do not respond well to medication. They offer new hope for those who suffer from chronic depression or severe anxiety. The effects can be startling. Sadness evaporates. Joy appears out of nowhere. Fear dissolves. All from a few seconds of carefully applied electrical influence. While the brain is the seat of your unique identity, these experiments show that emotions which feel so deeply personal are also products of physical circuits. A shift in electricity can ripple into the mind's most intimate experiences and transform perception and mood in an instant. Fact 44. Placebos can trigger real brain chemistry changes. The placebo effect is not just all in your head. It is literally happening in your brain with real, measurable chemistry. When someone believes a treatment will help them, their brain often responds by releasing real chemicals that mirror the expected effect. Placebo painkillers can prompt the brain to release endorphins. These are natural opioids that are stronger than many pharmaceutical drugs. Placebo antidepressants can adjust serotonin pathways and genuinely lift mood. In brain scans, these effects are visible and measurable. The same circuits that respond to real medicine often respond just as strongly to belief alone. The placebo effect highlights how expectation and trust are powerful biological forces. They can shape perception, reduce pain, and support healing. It blurs the line between mind and body. It shows that belief itself is a kind of medicine. The brain is not just a passive recipient of treatment, it is an active participant in healing, capable of summoning its own internal pharmacy when the story of relief is convincing enough. Fact 45. The brain creates its own painkillers stronger than morphine. Hidden deep in your brain are natural chemicals that dampen pain and generate feelings of calm. They are called endorphins and enkephalins. These molecules bind to the same receptors that morphine targets. Sometimes they produce effects that are even stronger than the drug. They flood your body during exercise, laughter, and moments of acute stress, acting as an internal shield against pain. The runner's high is one well-known example. It is a euphoric state where pain melts away into exhilaration as endorphins surge through the system. Similarly, people in emergencies sometimes report not feeling their injuries until long afterward when the brain's natural painkillers finally wear off. These systems evolved to help humans survive danger and hardship by masking pain long enough to escape or fight back. It means your brain carries its own built-in pharmacy ready to release powerful medicine exactly when it is needed. Every moment of relief, joy, or endurance may be traced back to these quiet molecules shimmering invisibly in your brain's hidden chemistry. Fact 46. The same brain circuit fires for physical and emotional pain. Heartbreak really does feel like it hurts physically. And in a way, it actually does hurt. Neuroscientists have found that the same brain regions that light up when you stub your toe or burn your hand also activate when you experience rejection, grief, or social loss. The anterior cingulate cortex and insula are key centers for processing pain. They do not distinguish much between the sting of the body and the ache of the heart. This overlap suggests that social bonds are just as vital to survival as avoiding physical harm. Evolution may have wired emotional pain into the same circuits to make sure we stay connected to others. It explains why loneliness and loss feel physically crushing. It also explains why painkillers can sometimes soften emotional suffering. The discovery reveals how deeply tangled the physical and emotional worlds really are inside the brain. Pain is not only a bodily sensation, it is also a signal of broken connection, a reminder that we are wired to need each other. Fact 47. Laughter activates multiple regions across the brain at once. Laughter may feel simple and effortless, but it is actually one of the most complex acts the brain performs. It engages the prefrontal cortex, which processes context and humor. It activates the limbic system, which handles emotion. It lights up the motor cortex, which coordinates the rhythmic movements of breath and voice needed to produce laughter. Brain scans show that laughter is not confined to a single spot. It lights up circuits across the entire mind in a joyful cascade of activity. This wide activation may be why laughter feels so freeing and uplifting. It synchronizes many regions at once in perfect harmony. Laughter also floods the brain with endorphins which lower stress and boost feelings of connection with others. It acts as social glue, bonding people together through shared rhythm and joy. The act that feels so spontaneous and light-hearted is in fact a full brain symphony. Every chuckle is a performance involving the whole mind, reminding us that joy is not just felt in the heart but orchestrated beautifully in the brain. Fact 48. The brain's mirror neurons make you feel others' emotions. When you see someone smile, your brain does not just recognize it passively. It partially mirrors it internally. Special cells called mirror neurons fire both when you perform an action and when you see someone else perform it. They are thought to underlie empathy, allowing you to feel echoes of other people's emotions inside yourself. This is why watching someone cry can make your own throat tighten. It is why seeing a yawn can trigger one in you even if you are not tired. Mirror neurons blur the boundary between self and other. They weave invisible threads of connection between minds. They may have been crucial for learning and social bonding throughout human evolution, letting people share skills and feelings across a group. While their exact role is still being debated and studied, the idea is deeply profound. Much of what you feel is not only your own experience, it is also a reflection of the world around you. Your brain is in many ways an empathetic mirror constantly resonating with the emotions of those nearby. Fact 49. The brain can generate a sense of time that speeds up or slows down. Have you noticed how time seems to stretch out during moments of fear or danger, but collapses into quick flashes during moments of joy? This distortion is created inside the brain. Internal clocks distributed across regions like the basal ganglia and cerebellum constantly track intervals and durations, but emotion, attention, and arousal can warp these signals, making seconds feel longer or shorter than they actually are. In emergencies, the brain lays down more detailed memories frame by frame. This creates the impression that time has slowed down, even though it has not. In flow states like playing music, painting, or running, the opposite happens. Hours vanish in what feels like mere minutes. Time is not absolute in the mind. It is elastic and flexible, bent by circumstance and feeling. The physics of the clock may march forward steadily, but the brain's experience of time is fluid, stretching and compressing to fit the emotional landscape of each unique moment. Fact 50. Bilingual brains grow denser grey matter than monolingual brains. Speaking more than one language does much more than just expand your ability to communicate. It actually reshapes the brain itself in measurable ways. Bilingual individuals often show greater density of grey matter in regions linked to memory, attention, and what scientists call executive control. Constantly switching between languages strengthens the brain's flexibility and improves multitasking and focus. It also seems to protect against cognitive decline as people age, even delaying the onset of dementia in some studies. The act of juggling vocabularies and grammar systems builds resilience into the mind, like a rigorous workout for neural circuits. Even learning a new language later in life can spark noticeable growth, proving the brain never loses its capacity to change and adapt. The benefits extend far beyond just speaking another tongue. Bilingual brains tend to show sharper problem-solving skills and more adaptable thought patterns overall. Each new word learned is not just a tool for conversation, it is a brick laid in the architecture of a stronger, more resilient, more flexible brain. Fact 51. Reading activates nearly the entire brain at once. When you read a sentence, it feels effortless and almost automatic. But inside your head, the brain is performing a complex symphony of activity across many different areas. The visual cortex decodes the shapes of letters on the page. Language centers in the temporal lobe process meaning and grammar. The prefrontal cortex organizes comprehension and understanding. Even motor regions subtly engage as if quietly rehearsing the motions of speech. Reading can also stir emotional areas deep in the brain, lighting up memory and imagination as you picture scenes and feel what characters are experiencing. In this way, reading is one of the very few activities that recruits nearly the entire brain all at once. Each page is not just ink on paper, it is a workout across vision, language, memory, and empathy all happening simultaneously. It explains why reading strengthens thinking skills and why stories feel so immersive and real. They enlist the whole brain in creating a vivid inner world. The act of following words on a page is truly a full brain experience, engaging almost everything at once. Fact 52. Every thought you have leaves a physical trace in your brain. Thoughts may seem invisible and intangible, but each one actually leaves behind a physical imprint in the tissue of your brain. When neurons fire together repeatedly, their connections strengthen slightly. There is a saying in neuroscience that captures this perfectly. Cells that fire together wire together. Over time, repeated thoughts or habits carve pathways into the brain, making them easier to recall or repeat in the future. This is why practicing gratitude can genuinely change your mood over time. It is why rehearsing skills makes them feel like second nature. Even fleeting ideas spark microscopic adjustments in synapses. The brain is like soft clay being reshaped moment by moment, molded by the currents of consciousness flowing through it. It means that who you are today is built from the accumulation of all your thoughts over time. Each one leaves a trace on the living tissue of your mind. Nothing is truly lost. Every passing idea contributes something to the architecture of self, etching a delicate invisible history into the brain's vast network of connections. Fact 53. Brains of extreme athletes show special adaptations to fear free solo climbers. Big wave surfers and wingsuit flyers appear almost fearless in situations that most people would find absolutely overwhelming. Brain scans reveal that these extreme athletes often have unusual patterns of activity in their amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain. Instead of showing heightened panic responses, their amygdalas remain surprisingly calm and quiet. This allows them to act with razor-sharp focus in situations where others might freeze or flee. Some of this ability may be innate from birth, but much of it is also trained through experience. Repeated exposure to danger conditions the brain over time, teaching it to regulate fear differently and channel adrenaline into useful concentration. These adaptations give them a crucial edge, letting them perform with clarity and precision in life-threatening environments. It does not mean they lack fear entirely. Rather, their brains process it differently, translating terror into calm, focused action. These findings show that even the most primal emotions, like raw terror, can be reshaped dramatically by experience, sculpting the mind into something astonishingly resilient under extreme pressure. Fact 54. Some brains solve math problems by recruiting visual regions. Not everyone's brain tackles mathematics in the same way. In some people, solving equations activates not just traditional numerical regions, but also areas normally devoted to vision and spatial reasoning. They may literally see numbers as shapes in their mind. They arrange calculations as mental diagrams floating in space. They imagine equations as movements or patterns. This visual approach can give them unique strengths and advantages, allowing rapid problem-solving or intuitive leaps that feel less like calculation and more like pure perception. Brain scans confirm that these individuals light up the occipital cortex, which is normally reserved for processing sight, while working through mathematical problems. It suggests that mathematical thought is not confined to a single rigid brain circuit. It can recruit many different pathways depending on the individual person. Numbers are not just abstract symbols floating in a void. They are flexible tools, and the brain adapts creatively to use them in whatever way it can. For some people, math is not only logic and rules, it is also a kind of beautiful inner vision. Fact 55. Extreme memory champions use brain tricks anyone can learn. People who compete in memory championships seem almost superhuman. They can memorize thousands of random digits or entire decks of cards in just minutes. Yet most of them were not born with unusual brains or special gifts. Instead, they use ancient techniques that anyone can learn. One popular method is called the memory palace. You store information as vivid images and place them along an imagined path through a familiar building like your childhood home. Brain scans show that when these champions perform their incredible feats, regions linked to spatial navigation are unusually active. It is as if they are walking through mental landscapes filled with symbolic objects and scenes. This method works so well because the brain is naturally wired to remember places and images far better than raw numbers or lists. With dedicated practice, anyone can improve their memory this way, though very few reach true championship levels. These findings prove that extraordinary memory is less about being born talented and more about harnessing the brain's hidden strengths and turning recall into a creative act of vivid imagination. Fact 56. The brain can restructure entirely after just weeks of practice. It might seem like meaningful brain change takes many years of effort, but brain scans reveal that just a few weeks of focused practice can leave a measurable imprint on structure. Learning to juggle, for example, has been shown to increase grey matter in regions linked to hand-eye coordination after only about a month. Language learning, music lessons, or even simple memory exercises can spark similar visible changes in brain tissue. This rapid remodeling underscores just how sensitive the brain is to training and repetition. Neural circuits expand to meet new demands, like muscles growing stronger with exercise. Even short bursts of dedicated effort can reshape the architecture of the mind in meaningful ways. The discovery is deeply empowering. Change does not require decades of grinding work. With consistent practice, the brain begins rewiring itself almost immediately, sometimes in just days or weeks. The mind is a dynamic living organ, always adapting and evolving. It is capable of profound growth at any stage of life. Every new skill learned leaves behind structural echoes as proof of the brain's extraordinary capacity for transformation. Fact 57. The brain's plasticity makes each person's path of growth unique. Though all human brains share the same basic structure and layout, each one grows and adapts in a way that no other does. Plasticity, which is the brain's ability to rewire itself, means that your unique experiences, habits, and environment carve distinct patterns of connectivity over time. Even identical twins who share the exact same DNA develop different brains as they live separate lives and make different choices. This uniqueness explains why people vary so widely in talents, memories, strengths, and even vulnerabilities. Every choice you make, from hobbies to friendships to challenges overcome, reshapes the neural map in subtle ways. Far from being fixed at birth, the brain is a personal creation sculpted by the act of living. It means there is no single correct blueprint for growth or success. Your brain's pathways are as individual as your fingerprints. The story of your life is literally written into its folds and curves, making your mind a one-of-a-kind landscape shaped by the experiences that only you have walked through. Fact 58. The brain sometimes moves your body before you decide to. When you reach for a cup of coffee or press a button, it feels like your conscious will drive the action directly. But fascinating experiments show that the brain's motor regions actually begin preparing movements fractions of a second before you become aware of making the decision. In the famous Libet experiment, brain activity predicting a choice appeared hundreds of milliseconds before participants reported consciously deciding. This suggests that consciousness may not truly initiate action. Instead, it may narrate afterward, weaving the sense of free will into a coherent story after the fact. While the debate about free will is ongoing and complex, the findings raise profound questions. How much of what we do is genuinely chosen, and how much is prepared unconsciously beneath awareness? Rather than diminishing human agency, it may highlight how deeply integrated conscious and unconscious processes truly are. You're not just a pilot sitting at the controls, you're also the engines, the wings, and the sky through which decisions fly. Fact 59. Your conscious mind may only notice a fraction of what your brain does. Your conscious awareness is like the tip of an iceberg floating above water. It is visible but represents only a tiny fraction of the vast mass hidden below. Most brain activity happens completely outside awareness. It regulates your heartbeat without you noticing. It filters millions of sensory inputs every second. It stores memories in the background. It even shapes decisions before they bubble up into consciousness. At any given moment, the brain is processing an overwhelming flood of signals, but only a thin stream of that information ever enters conscious awareness. This stream is just enough to give you a coherent sense of self and world, but it is only a fraction of the whole picture. Experiments show that choices, feelings, and perceptions often form unconsciously first. Awareness arrives only after the fact, like a narrator, catching up to a story already in motion. The conscious mind is more like a storyteller than a controller. It tells the story of what the larger hidden brain has already set in motion beneath the surface. Fact 60. Brain scans can sometimes detect decisions before you're aware of them. In cutting-edge experiments, scientists have used brain scanning technology to predict choices several seconds before participants became consciously aware of deciding. For example, by carefully monitoring activity in the prefrontal and parietal lobes, researchers could forecast whether someone would press a left or right button long before they reported making the choice consciously. This does not necessarily mean free will is completely an illusion, but it does suggest that decisions arise gradually over time, shaped by unconscious activity that slowly bubbles up into awareness. Consciousness may be the final stage in a longer hidden chain, the moment when the brain's quiet debate finally crosses a threshold and becomes visible to you. These studies blur the traditional line between thought and action, raising deep questions about control and identity. If your brain knows what you will choose before you consciously know it yourself, then who exactly is the you that decides? Perhaps selfhood is not a single voice making choices. It is the culmination of countless neural whispers converging together into the moment of awareness. Fact 61. The brain processes images faster than the blink of an eye. Your eyes constantly take in information from the world around you. But it is your brain that makes sense of the overwhelming flood of visual data. Astonishingly, research shows the brain can process a visual image in as little as 13 milliseconds. That is far faster than the time it takes to blink your eyes. This lightning speed allows you to recognize a friend's face in a crowded room, or catch sight of a bird darting across the sky almost instantly without conscious effort. The brain's visual system works in parallel with different regions simultaneously decoding color, motion, shape, and depth before stitching all the pieces together into one coherent scene. The efficiency is so incredibly high that you often identify objects before you're even fully aware of seeing them. This rapid-fire perception reveals how evolution has finely tuned the brain for survival, giving humans the remarkable ability to react to the world in real time. Each glance you take is a silent miracle of speed and precision, happening faster than you can possibly imagine. Fact 62. The brain produces tiny magnetic fields with every thought. Every time neurons fire and send signals, they create not only electrical currents, but also faint magnetic fields around them. These fields are unimaginably small, roughly 1 billion times weaker than the Earth's natural magnetic field. Yet sensitive instruments like magnetoencephalography can detect them from outside the skull without touching you. By measuring these whispers of magnetism, scientists can map brain activity with remarkable precision and capture changes happening millisecond by millisecond. It means that every thought, every flicker of memory or dream, leaves a magnetic trace in the air immediately around your head. These signals are so incredibly delicate that they require special rooms completely shielded from all other electromagnetic noise just to measure them accurately. The existence of these fields underscores the brain's dual nature as both a biological organ and a physical system humming constantly with electricity and magnetism. Even though you cannot feel them at all, the magnetic echoes of your thoughts shimmer invisibly and constantly, like halos radiating softly from the most mysterious organ you carry. Fact 63. The brain feels no pain. Paradoxically, the organ that generates your entire experience of pain cannot actually feel pain itself. Surgeons can operate directly on the brain while patients are fully awake and conscious. Though the surrounding tissues of the scalp and skull are very sensitive, the brain's neurons themselves completely lack pain receptors. This is why neurosurgery can be performed with patients awake and talking, which helps doctors carefully map brain regions by asking patients to speak, move, or even laugh during the procedure. It also explains why headaches do not actually originate from brain tissue itself, but from surrounding structures like blood vessels, muscles, and membranes that line the skull. The brain is exquisitely sensitive to temperature, pressure, and chemical changes in terms of how it functions. But it is entirely numb to pain in its own tissue. This strange fact underscores the profound difference between perceiving pain and generating it. The brain is the grand conductor of the symphony of sensation throughout your body. But its own instrument remains curiously and completely silent. Fact 64. The brain has a default mode network that lights up when you daydream. When your mind wanders away from the task at hand and drifts into daydreams, drifting to past memories, imagining possible futures, or quietly rehearsing conversations, a special set of regions called the default mode network comes alive with activity. This network spans the medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, and other interconnected areas. It is actually less active during focused external tasks, but it lights up brilliantly during introspection and self-reflection. Far from being idle or lazy, the default mode network is thought to weave together the threads of your personal narrative and maintain a continuous sense of self across time. It links memory to imagination and helps you simulate possible futures and reflect on deeper meaning. The discovery of this network reshaped neuroscience entirely, showing that the brain's so-called resting state is actually one of its busiest and most important modes. Daydreaming, which is often dismissed as mere distraction, turns out to be essential for creativity, self-reflection, and problem-solving. When your thoughts wander freely, your brain is not switching off. It is actively exploring the rich inner landscapes that make you uniquely who you are. Fact 65. Certain brain waves may synchronize across groups of people. When people gather together and share an experience, their brains may subtly align in rhythm. Studies using EEG technology have found that individuals watching the same movie, listening to the same music, or engaging in deep conversation can show synchronized brainwave patterns across their heads. This phenomenon, sometimes called neural coupling, suggests that shared experiences literally bring minds into harmony and rhythm together. Teachers and students, performers and audiences, even close groups of friends laughing together often show heightened synchronization in their brain activity. It reflects shared focus and emotional connection happening beneath conscious awareness. The effect may explain why collective experiences feel so powerful and meaningful. It explains why music can unite crowds of strangers. It explains why storytelling has such profound impact across cultures. In these moments, the boundaries between individual minds blur slightly, as if separate brains become instruments in a larger orchestra of shared thought and feeling. The discovery reveals that human connection is not just metaphorical or poetic. It is measurable in brain rhythms quietly beating together in harmony when we share attention, emotion, and presence. Fact 66. Brain cells talk not only with electricity, but with light like flashes. Neurons communicate primarily with electrical impulses and chemical signals passing between them. But researchers have discovered something unexpected. They may also emit tiny flashes of light known as biophotons during certain chemical reactions. These ultra-weak photons are incredibly faint and difficult to detect, but they hint at the intriguing possibility of a light-based layer of communication happening inside the brain. Some scientists speculate that these flashes might subtly influence neural activity or serve as byproducts of metabolism, though their exact role remains deeply mysterious and not fully understood. The idea that your thoughts could be accompanied by tiny invisible sparks of light inside your skull is both poetic and profound. While much still remains unknown about biophotons, the discovery reminds us that the brain may harbour levels of communication still far beyond our current understanding. It is not only an electrical network buzzing with current, it may also be a luminous one, flickering softly with light like whispers that quietly illuminate the hidden depths of consciousness. Fact 67. The brain produces more than 80 different neurochemicals. The brain is a bustling chemical laboratory, constantly generating a vast array of neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. These include familiar names like dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. But there are also dozens more with subtle, intricate roles. They regulate everything from sleep and appetite to mood, attention, focus, and learning. Each chemical acts like a single note in the grand symphony of the mind, carefully balancing excitation and inhibition, sharpening focus, or gently softening stress. The sheer number, over 80 known varieties so far, underscores the brain's staggering complexity. It is not powered by a single simple fuel. It runs on an entire orchestra of molecules, each one binding to billions of receptors and orchestrating the flow of thought and feeling. The balance is incredibly delicate. Even small shifts in just one chemical can ripple across the entire system, dramatically altering perception and behavior. This biochemical richness makes the brain adaptable, resilient, and sometimes wonderfully unpredictable. It is a reminder that every mood, every spark of inspiration, every emotion emerges from the invisible interplay of a vast molecular storm. Fact 68. Dopamine shapes your sense of motivation and reward. Often nicknamed the pleasure chemical, dopamine is better understood as the brain's powerful signal for motivation and reward prediction. When you anticipate something good, whether it is a delicious meal, a text from a loved one, or the deep satisfaction of completing a challenging task, dopamine surges through your system and nudges you forward into action. It does not just make you feel good in the moment, it actively wires motivation into behavior, teaching the brain which actions are worth repeating in the future. Too little dopamine can sap your drive and focus, leaving you feeling flat and unmotivated. Too much can fuel compulsions, risky behavior, or even addiction. Dopamine's influence stretches from simple habit formation all the way to addiction, from everyday satisfaction to long-term ambitious goals. It is the brain's way of tagging certain experiences with a bright glowing marker that says this matters, pay attention. Far from being a simple on-off pleasure switch, dopamine is the master architect of effort and desire, quietly shaping the pursuit of joy and weaving motivation into the everyday rhythm of your life. Fact 69. Oxytocin can change how much you trust someone. Known widely as the bonding hormone, oxytocin flows through your system during hugs, childbirth, and intimate moments of closeness with others. In the brain, it enhances trust, empathy, and social connection in measurable ways. Experiments show that people given oxytocin through a nasal spray are significantly more likely to cooperate with others, share resources generously, or take social risks like trusting strangers. It is one of the key molecular players that turn fleeting interactions into lasting bonds, weaving the invisible ties of family, friendship, and romantic love. But oxytocin is not universally good or simple. It can also increase favoritism toward your own group while sharpening the divide between us and them. This dual role reveals its evolutionary purpose clearly. It evolved to foster deep trust within close groups, strengthening survival and cooperation, even sometimes at the cost of suspicion or hostility toward outsiders. Oxytocin's effects remind us that biology powerfully shapes even our deepest feelings of connection and trust. Every warm embrace, every surge of trust in another person, every bond of love is chemically supported by this small but mighty molecular messenger, quietly whispering through the brain. Fact 70. Serotonin influences mood, sleep, and appetite all at once. Serotonin is one of the brain's most versatile and important chemicals. It influences mood stability, sleep cycles, digestion, and even how you perceive the world around you. Balanced serotonin levels are closely linked to feelings of calm, contentment, and well-being. Imbalances are strongly associated with depression, anxiety, and other mood disorders. It plays a crucial role in regulating appetite and sleep, helping the body maintain steady, healthy rhythms throughout the day and night. Some psychedelic substances work primarily by mimicking serotonin's structure, which alters perception in profound and sometimes life-changing ways. Interestingly, about 90% of the body's serotonin is actually produced in the gut, not the brain, highlighting the deep, surprising connection between digestion and mood, often called the gut-brain axis. Serotonin demonstrates clearly how no single function in the brain happens in isolation. Instead, one molecule can influence many different aspects of life simultaneously and in interconnected ways. Each moment of contentment, every smooth night of rest, every healthy appetite for food or new experience is shaped in part by serotonin's quiet orchestration, linking mind and body together in one shared chemical rhythm. Fact 71. The brain stores languages in different locations depending on age learned. If you learn a second language as a young child, your brain tucks it into the same region as your first language, weaving the two together almost seamlessly. But if you learn a new language later in life as an adult, it gets stored in a slightly different neighboring area that remains distinct. This separation explains why children can effortlessly switch between languages without confusion, while adults often struggle to suppress interference from their native tongue. Brain scans confirm that the timing of exposure fundamentally shapes the architecture of language storage in lasting ways. Early learning integrates multiple languages into a single unified system. Later learning builds parallel but separate circuits that operate more independently. This discovery shows how the brain's plasticity and flexibility change dramatically with age. It also reveals why childhood is such a golden window for language acquisition. But it also underscores that even in adulthood, the brain remains remarkably adaptable, capable of constructing fresh neural maps to house new words, grammar, and entire worlds of meaning. Fact 72. The brain processes your inner voice like external speech. That silent voice inside your head, the one that reads these words, replays conversations, or plans what to say next, is treated by your brain almost exactly like actual sound coming from outside. Neuroimaging studies show that inner speech activates auditory and language processing areas as though you were genuinely hearing your own words spoken aloud. This is why inner dialogue can feel so vivid and lifelike. It is also why the brain can sometimes confuse imagined voices with real ones, as happens in certain psychiatric conditions. The inner voice plays a crucial role in memory, planning ahead, and self-regulation. It gives thought a structured verbal shape that helps organize ideas. Far from being an abstract phenomenon floating somewhere above the brain, it is a concrete process echoing through auditory circuits without producing any actual sound. Every time you talk silently to yourself, your brain is rehearsing sound and language without making any noise. It weaves language seamlessly into the fabric of thought. In a sense, you're always both the speaker and the listener inside your own mind, narrating life's unfolding story moment by moment. Fact 73. The teenage brain rewires itself in waves of dramatic change. Adolescence is not just a storm of unpredictable hormones, it is a profound period of neurological remodeling happening deep inside the brain. During the teenage years, the brain undergoes massive pruning, cutting away excess synapses and streamlining connections for greater efficiency. At the same time, it strengthens circuits linked to decision-making, social interaction, and emotional regulation. These changes occur unevenly across different regions. The limbic system, which processes emotion and reward, develops earlier and faster. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for judgment and impulse control, matures much later. This imbalance explains the thrill-seeking, risk-taking, and emotional intensity so characteristic of teenage behavior. Far from being flaws or mistakes, these shifts prepare the brain for adulthood by fostering flexibility, rapid learning, and growing independence. The rewiring unfolds in waves over several years, making adolescence a period of both vulnerability and incredible potential. What looks like chaos on the surface is actually the brain reorganizing itself into a more powerful, efficient machine, carefully laying down the complex architecture that will carry a person through the rest of their life. Fact 74. The brain doesn't finish developing until the mid-20s. While bodies reach physical maturity in late adolescence, the brain continues developing well into the mid-20s or even later. The prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of planning, reasoning, and impulse control, is one of the very last regions to fully mature. This extended timeline explains why young adults may still struggle with long-term decision-making, risk assessment, or thinking through consequences even though they appear fully grown physically. It also highlights the remarkable flexibility of early adulthood as a critical period when the brain is still actively refining pathways for judgment, empathy, and self-control. Far from being static or finished, these years represent the final stage of brain development, blending youthful adaptability with the growing stability of maturity. Knowing this can completely reframe how we view the challenges of early adulthood. They are not failures or shortcomings. They are part of the natural, ongoing process of the brain completing its masterpiece. By the mid-20s, the architecture of thought, personality, and self-control finally settles into place, fully formed and ready for the decades ahead. Fact 75. Infant brains build up to 1 million new connections per second. In the first years of life, the brain grows at a staggering, almost unbelievable pace. Each second, infants are forming up to 1 million new synaptic connections between neurons. This represents the brain weaving the foundational architecture of perception, language, and movement at breathtaking speed. This explosive growth is fueled by the infant's constant absorption of the world around them. Every sound, sight, smell, and touch etches itself into neural tissue, building pathways that will last a lifetime. By age 3, a child's brain has far more synapses than an adult brain, creating a lush, abundant network that will later be refined through careful pruning. This early abundance explains the extraordinary learning capacity of young children, who pick up languages, motor skills, and complex patterns with astonishing ease and speed. It is a period of breathtaking neural construction, as though the brain were racing to lay down every possible pathway it might ever need, ensuring maximum survival and adaptability. The pace may slow later in life, but the early years leave lasting deep imprints that shape the foundations of intelligence, personality, and identity for an entire lifetime. Fact 76. Babies are born with nearly all the neurons they will ever have. At birth, an infant already carries around 86 billion neurons inside their tiny skull. That is nearly the full lifetime supply they will ever possess. What changes dramatically after birth is not the number of neurons themselves, but the connections between them. Synapses sprout rapidly as the baby encounters and explores the world, linking neurons into intricate networks that support perception, movement, and language development. The sheer number of neurons present at birth provides the raw potential and foundation, but experience carefully sculpts the pathways over time, deciding which circuits will flourish and which ones will be pruned away. This balance of abundance and refinement gives human beings their remarkable adaptability and flexibility, allowing each child to grow perfectly suited to their unique environment. The fact that nearly all neurons are already present at birth is a profound reminder that the brain arrives fully prepared for a lifetime of learning. It is not empty or blank. It is primed with enormous potential, just waiting for the world to shape the dense forest of connections that will eventually define conscious thought and identity. Fact 77. A child's brain is far more flexible than an adult's. Children can recover from serious injuries, adapt quickly to new environments, and learn complex skills in ways that adults often simply cannot match. This extraordinary flexibility comes from heightened neuroplasticity, which is the brain's remarkable ability to rewire itself in response to experience. For example, if a child suffers damage to one hemisphere of the brain, the other side can sometimes take over lost functions almost completely, a feat that is far harder and rarer in adults. Languages learned in childhood integrate seamlessly into the brain's architecture, while adults often struggle with accent, fluency, and grammar. The child's brain is like wet clay, easily molded and shaped by every experience. The adult brain is more like hardened pottery, still somewhat adaptable but much less fluid and responsive. This plasticity comes at a cost, though. Children may be more vulnerable to negative environments because their brains absorb influences so deeply and completely. Still, the incredible flexibility of the young mind explains their astonishing capacity for growth, adaptation, and learning, shaping each individual into a unique reflection of both their biology and their lived experiences. Fact 78. Older brains still grow new neurons in certain regions. For much of the 20th century, scientists firmly believed adults could not grow new neurons at all. But groundbreaking research has completely overturned this old dogma, showing that neurogenesis continues well into old age, especially in the hippocampus, a region absolutely central to memory and learning. These brand new neurons may help preserve cognitive flexibility and resilience, supporting the ability to adapt, learn fresh information, and form new memories even later in life. Exercise, enriched stimulating environments, and even practices like meditation have all been shown to encourage neurogenesis, suggesting practical ways anyone can nurture and support the aging brain. While the overall rate of growth certainly slows compared to childhood, the fact that it persists at all is truly remarkable and hopeful. It means the brain is never fully fixed or finished, but always quietly evolving, even in advanced years. This discovery fundamentally redefines aging not as inevitable steady decline, but as a stage where growth, renewal, and meaningful change still unfold inside the mind, continuing the lifelong journey of transformation. Fact 79. Some people maintain brilliant cognitive abilities into very old age, while many people naturally associate aging with mental decline and forgetfulness. Some individuals, often called superagers, retain exceptional memory, sharp focus, and impressive problem-solving skills well into their 80s or even 90s. Brain scans reveal that superagers often have thicker cortices and stronger connectivity in regions related to attention and memory, closely resembling the brains of much younger people. Lifestyle factors such as regular physical activity, deep social engagement, lifelong learning, and psychological resilience may contribute significantly. But genetics also play an important role that cannot be ignored. Superagers powerfully challenge the widespread assumption that decline is inevitable for everyone, showing that some brains not only endure but truly thrive with age. Their inspiring stories remind us of the brain's incredible resilience and adaptability. Even as years accumulate steadily, the mind can remain remarkably sharp, agile, and luminous. Each superager is living proof that the brain's journey does not follow a single predictable path. For some fortunate individuals, it continues to sparkle brilliantly long after most people expect the light to fade away. Fact 80. Alzheimer's disease slowly dismantles neural networks. Alzheimer's disease is one of the most devastating neurological conditions known, progressively eroding memory, language, and reasoning abilities over many years. It begins with the gradual build-up of amyloid plaques and tau tangles, which are toxic proteins that severely disrupt communication between neurons. As networks steadily break down, the hippocampus, which is the seat of memory formation, is among the very first regions to falter and fail. Over time, entire circuits collapse completely, leaving painful gaps in identity and awareness. What makes Alzheimer's so uniquely tragic is not only the loss of cognitive ability, but the slow unravelling of the self as precious memories and personality gradually fade away. Yet research also highlights remarkable resilience in some cases. Some brains develop extensive plaques without showing any symptoms at all, hinting at protective factors still being actively uncovered by scientists. Understanding Alzheimer's represents a desperate race against time, with researchers working tirelessly to slow, prevent, or even reverse its devastating course. The disease reminds us starkly of the brain's fragility, but it also underscores its profound significance as the keeper of everything we are. Fact 81. Some people's brains keep working for minutes after the heart stops. When the heart stops beating, most of the body shuts down almost instantly and completely. But the brain lingers on for a surprisingly long time. In some documented cases, brain activity continues for several minutes after death, producing measurable waves that closely resemble those seen in deep sleep or meditation. A few people who were successfully revived after cardiac arrest even report vivid awareness during the period when they were clinically gone, describing experiences like tunnels of light, hearing voices, or an expanded sense of time and space. Scientists continue to debate whether these experiences come from residual bursts of electrical activity, a brain desperately in survival overdrive, or something more mysterious that we do not yet understand. What is certain is that the brain does not simply flick off like a light switch. Instead, it fades gradually and slowly, continuing to spark and hum softly in its final moments. These afterglow patterns remind us that consciousness is not so tightly bound to the heartbeat as we might assume. It lingers on stubbornly as if reluctant to fully release its hold on life. Fact 82. The brain can be fooled into thinking a fake rubber hand is your own. In the famous rubber hand illusion, a person rests their real hand completely out of sight, while a realistic-looking rubber hand sits directly in front of them where they can see it clearly. When both the hidden real hand and the visible fake hand are stroked simultaneously and in sync, something strange happens. The brain merges the conflicting signals together. Within just minutes, many people genuinely feel as though the rubber hand is actually their own body part. Some even flinch instinctively when the fake hand is suddenly threatened or poked. This experiment reveals just how malleable and flexible body ownership truly is. The brain constantly weaves sensory inputs together into a seamless, coherent sense of self and embodiment. But it can be tricked surprisingly easily. The illusion demonstrates that our feeling of inhabiting a body is not fixed or permanent. It is actively constructed moment by moment. By cleverly bending the rules, scientists have shown how easily the brain can be persuaded to redraw the boundaries of the physical body. What feels undeniably like you is in part a fragile story your brain tells itself, and that story can be rewritten. Fact 83. The brain can fill in missing vision, creating a seamless reality. Your eyes contain a natural blind spot located where the optic nerve leaves the retina, creating a small hole in your vision. Yet you never notice it at all because your brain automatically fills in the missing patch with surrounding detail and context. This clever editing happens not only for the blind spot but in much broader ways throughout your visual experience. When information is missing, unclear, or obscured, the brain confidently invents plausible details to maintain the illusion of continuous, seamless perception. If part of a pattern is hidden, you still perceive it as whole and complete. If letters are blurred or partially covered, your mind supplies the missing shapes without hesitation. The result is a reality that feels utterly complete and unbroken. Even though gaps are constantly being patched and filled in, this creative editing shows clearly that perception, is not a passive recording of external reality. It is an active, ongoing construction. Every moment the brain is quietly painting in the blanks and filling gaps, producing a world so smooth and convincing that you rarely realize it is partly imagined and invented. Fact 84. People with certain brain lesions cannot recognize faces even of loved ones. Imagine looking directly at your partner, your child, or your best friend, and seeing only a complete stranger staring back. This is the harsh reality of prosopagnosia, commonly known as face blindness. It is often caused by damage to a small specific patch of the brain called the fusiform gyrus. People with this condition can clearly see every individual feature like eyes, nose, and mouth, but they cannot assemble them together into a recognizable whole person. They may rely heavily on voices, clothing, hairstyles, or mannerisms instead to identify people. Some describe all faces as looking essentially the same or completely interchangeable. The most haunting part is that even deep emotional recognition can vanish entirely. A deeply loved one may feel utterly unfamiliar despite years of close relationship. This reveals just how specialized and localized the brain truly is. A tiny damaged area can govern the immense social skill of recognizing faces. For those who live with prosopagnosia, every introduction and every meeting feels like encountering someone completely new, even if it is someone they have known and loved all their lives. Fact 85. Certain people can see auras around others due to brain perception quirks. Some people report seeing glowing colors or shimmering halos around other people's bodies, often described as auras radiating outward. While mystical explanations abound throughout history, science suggests that in at least some cases this comes from neurological quirks and unusual wiring. A condition called synesthesia can cause senses to blend together unexpectedly, making emotions or personalities trigger vivid color perceptions. In rare visual processing differences, bright halos can appear around sharp edges, particularly in high-contrast lighting situations. Migraine sufferers sometimes see shimmering lights or colored outlines during episodes, which may contribute to aura-like experiences that feel deeply meaningful, though not everyone perceives them. These brain-based phenomena demonstrate how subjective and variable vision can truly be. For those who genuinely experience them, the world is infused with extra layers of light and color tied directly to perception, rather than objective external reality. Whether mystical, neurological, or somewhere mysteriously in between, auras highlight how the brain can take ordinary sensory input and transform it into something vivid, strange, and deeply personal. Fact 86. The brain sometimes creates extra sensations that don't exist. Your brain can produce sensations like touches, sounds, or even smells that arise from absolutely nowhere in the external world. This phenomenon, known as paresthesia or hallucination, reveals how perception is actively generated inside the nervous system itself, not merely received passively from the outside world. People may feel bizarre, buzzing, tingling, or crawling sensations on their skin without any actual stimulus touching them. They may hear persistent phantom sounds like ringing, a condition called tinnitus. They may smell odors that are not there at all. These experiences occur when the brain misfires slightly, activating sensory regions in the complete absence of real input. They remind us powerfully that reality as we experience it is a product of the brain's interpretation of incoming signals, and those signals can sometimes arise internally without any external cause. Though sometimes unsettling or annoying, these phantom sensations underscore the remarkable creativity of the nervous system. The brain is not only a passive receiver of information, it is also an active generator capable of conjuring entire sensory experiences from nothing, making them feel utterly real and convincing. Fact 87. Phantom pain can be reduced by watching a mirror illusion. Amputees often experience phantom limb pain, which are sensations of intense discomfort, cramping, or burning in a limb that no longer physically exists. One of the most effective treatments involves nothing more than a simple mirror strategically placed. In mirror therapy, a patient places their intact remaining limb beside a mirror, angled, to create the optical illusion that both limbs are present and whole. When they move the healthy limb, the brain interprets the reflection as the missing one moving, effectively updating its internal body map. For many people, this simple, elegant trick relieves pain, sometimes dramatically and rapidly. The therapy works because the brain's representation of the body can be recalibrated through clear visual feedback. What the eyes confidently report can override what the damaged nerves insist upon. This elegant solution demonstrates beautifully how perception and reality are deeply intertwined inside the mind. Even the absence of a physical limb can be soothed and comforted by a carefully crafted illusion. It is proof of the brain's willingness to believe and trust what it sees reflected back. Fact 88. The brain creates phantom limbs that feel real even when missing. After amputation, many people continue to vividly feel the presence of the missing limb, sometimes with uncanny detail and realism. They may sense their fingers wiggling freely, their toes curling tightly, or their hand resting comfortably on their lap, even though the limb is completely gone. These phantom limbs arise because the brain's map of the body, which is stored in the somatosensory cortex, does not immediately update after loss. The neurons representing the missing part continue to fire actively, generating sensations as if the limb were still physically there. Over time, the brain may slowly reorganize and adapt. But for many people, the phantom sensation persists stubbornly, sometimes for years or even decades. This illustrates clearly how the brain constructs the experience of the body internally through neural mapping, not simply from physical feedback alone. Your sense of embodiment and physical presence is a neurological creation built over time, and once firmly established, it can outlast the body itself. Phantom limbs are a haunting but fascinating reminder of the mind's extraordinary power to conjure presence and sensation from complete absence. Fact 89. Tiny strokes can permanently alter personality. Not all strokes are dramatic or immediately obvious. Some are small and almost undetectable at first glance. Yet even tiny strokes, depending on their precise location, can reshape personality in profound and lasting ways. A minor interruption in blood flow might affect the frontal lobes, leading to sudden impulsivity, noticeable loss of empathy, or flattened emotions seemingly overnight. Others might spark unexplained irritability, deep apathy, or unusual fixation on repetitive routines. Families often notice the change first and most painfully. A loved one feels subtly different, somehow not themselves anymore. These shifts reveal starkly how closely identity is tied to specific, delicate neural circuits. We like to imagine personality as a stable, unchanging essence deep within us, but it is also a fragile construction built carefully on the functioning of tiny networks of cells. Small strokes expose this hidden truth plainly. Even subtle damage can dramatically tilt the balance of traits that define us as individuals, reminding us soberly how much of who we are depends entirely on the quiet health of the brain. Fact 90. The brain has specialized cells that map your physical environment. Inside your hippocampus are remarkable neurons called place cells that fire only when you're in a specific physical location. They essentially form an internal map of space around you. Discovered first in rats and later confirmed in humans, these cells allow you to instinctively know where you are in a room, a city, or even a complex maze of hallways. Related cells called grid cells provide a geometric coordinate system, laying out the angles and distances of your surroundings with precision. Together they give the brain a built-in navigation system like an internal GPS guiding you. This system explains how you can navigate familiar places without consciously thinking about it, or suddenly recall a detailed layout after many years away. It is also why damage to the hippocampus can cause severe disorientation, stripping away the brain's spatial compass completely. These specialized cells show beautifully that memory and navigation are deeply intertwined. To know where you are is to know where you have been, and the brain records it all with extraordinary precision and detail. Fact 91. The brain's hippocampus acts like a time machine for memory. Deep within your brain, the hippocampus weaves together experiences into lasting memory. When you recall the past, it does not simply retrieve a recording like playing a video. It rebuilds the moment piece by piece, like carefully replaying a film frame by frame. Scientists have found that hippocampal activity during recall closely mirrors its activity during the original event, as though it literally time travels back to the experience. This is why memories feel so immersive and vivid. You do not just know what happened, you relive it emotionally. The hippocampus is also absolutely critical for imagining the future in detail. Damage to it not only erases memory, but also prevents people from picturing tomorrow clearly. Past and future are built on the same underlying mechanism, creatively recombining fragments of experience in new ways. In this way, the hippocampus serves as your personal time machine, carrying you backward into yesterday and forward into the realm of possibility. Without it, you would be stranded in the present moment, unable to travel through your own life at all. Fact 92. Some people can remember events from the womb. It sounds completely impossible, but some people report vivid memories of sensations from before they were even born. Scientists once dismissed these claims as pure imagination, but research shows that late-stage fetuses can indeed form memories, responding predictably to sounds, music, or voices they hear repeatedly in the womb. After birth, newborns clearly recognize these sounds, calming noticeably at their mother's voice or familiar melodies they heard before delivery. In rare cases, adults claim to consciously recall these early impressions later in life. These prenatal memories are controversial and difficult to verify scientifically, but they highlight the brain's astonishing ability to encode experience even before we breathe air for the first time. Whether remembered directly or imprinted unconsciously beneath awareness, the womb undeniably leaves its mark. It creates a soundscape of muffled voices, rhythmic heartbeats, and surrounding warmth. Such claims remind us that memory begins far earlier than we usually imagine, and that the brain, even before birth, is already quietly collecting time, tucking away impressions of the very first world we ever know. Fact 93. The brain produces waves strong enough to be detected outside the skull. Your brain never stops humming with steady electricity. Neurons fire in synchronized rhythms that produce measurable oscillations commonly called brain waves. These patterns, named alpha, beta, theta, and delta, reflect different states of thought, rest, and sleep. What is truly remarkable is that these waves are strong enough to be recorded from outside the skull using techniques like EEG. Electrodes placed gently on the scalp can pick up the faint currents, translating brain activity into visible waves displayed on a screen. Even without direct contact, sensitive instruments can detect the magnetic fields generated by neural firing. This means that in principle the hidden rhythms of thought extend slightly beyond the body itself, radiating softly into space around you. While they cannot be read like an open book revealing your thoughts, the fact that our inner states have outward ripples is truly astonishing. Every thought, dream, and sensation sends faint echoes outward into the world, tiny signals of the brain's endless electrical symphony playing constantly inside your head. Factor Sesofine. 94. Scientists have reconstructed sounds based on brain activity. Imagine hearing music that exists only in someone else's mind, not in the air around you. Neuroscientists are edging remarkably closer to this possibility every year. By carefully analyzing brain activity patterns when people listen to specific words or sounds, researchers have managed to reconstruct rough versions of what they were hearing using only neural data. In some experiments, computer models trained on brain signals could generate recognizable speech from neural activity alone, without any sound being produced. The reconstructions are far from perfect. They are ghostly and distorted like hearing through heavy static interference. But they hint powerfully at a future where inner experiences might be translated outward into the world. This technology could someday give voice to people unable to speak, by decoding the words forming silently in their minds. It also raises profound deep questions. If thoughts can be reconstructed and made audible, where exactly is the boundary between mind and machine? For now, the idea that electrical pulses in the brain can be reshaped into audible sound feels like science fiction slowly slipping into reality. Fact 95. The brain sometimes produces sudden flashes of insight out of nowhere. Every so often a solution or idea erupts into awareness fully formed as if delivered by lightning from nowhere. These aha moments occur when different brain regions suddenly synchronize in perfect harmony. Studies show that just before an insight, the temporal lobe spikes with activity while the brain's rhythms shift dramatically toward gamma waves. In that instant, disparate ideas are woven together into a new, coherent whole. The experience feels almost magical because it completely bypasses conscious reasoning. The answer simply appears whole and complete. Many creative breakthroughs, from scientific discoveries to artistic inspiration, have been born from such flashes of sudden clarity. The brain seems to have a backstage workshop hidden from view, quietly combining fragments until the curtain lifts dramatically. These moments remind us that thinking is not always deliberate or controlled. Sometimes the greatest leaps arrive unbidden, like unexpected gifts. The mind works in silence beneath awareness, and then all at once offers up a spark that can change everything forever. Fact 96. The brain lights up differently when you are in love. Love is not just an abstract emotion floating above the body. It is a whole brain event that can be measured and mapped. Scans show that when people are deeply in love, regions tied to reward, motivation and pleasure, especially the caudate nucleus and ventral tegmental area, ignite brilliantly with activity. Dopamine, the brain's powerful feel-good chemical, surges dramatically, producing euphoria, intense craving, and sharp focus on the beloved person. At the same time, regions tied to judgment and negative emotions quiet down significantly, explaining the rose-coloured glasses effect where flaws seem invisible. In long-term bonds, another network gradually emerges. Oxytocin and vasopressin circuits foster deep trust and lasting attachment. The pattern of activation shifts from fiery obsession to steady companionship over time. To the brain, love is not abstract or intangible. It is chemistry, wiring, and circuits working in perfect concert. Yet what emerges from this intricate web of activity feels larger than biology itself, a force that reshapes perception, fuels devotion, and gives human life its most profound connections. Fact 97. Baby brains double in size during the first year of life. At birth, a baby's brain is only about a quarter of its eventual adult size, yet within a single remarkable year it doubles in volume, exploding with new connections at a rate completely unmatched later in life. Neurons branch rapidly into dense forests of synapses, laying down the essential foundations for movement, language, and social understanding. A baby forms up to 1 million new connections per second during this explosive growth period, sculpted constantly by experience. Every gentle touch, every sound, every smile actively builds the architecture of the developing mind. By age 3, the brain has twice as many synapses as an adult brain, a surplus that will later be carefully pruned back for efficiency. This early overgrowth ensures that infants can adapt to whatever environment they are born into anywhere on Earth. The astonishing growth of the first year reveals clearly how the brain is not just pre-programmed from birth, it is actively shaped by the world around it, a living construction project built at absolutely dazzling speed. Fact 98. Some brains can withstand extreme injury yet still function. There are remarkable documented cases of people living with catastrophic brain injuries and functioning far better than anyone ever expected. One famous man lived a completely normal life despite missing most of his cerebral cortex, his skull largely filled with fluid instead of tissue. Others have survived with only half a brain surgically removed, yet still learn to walk, talk, and even attend school successfully. This resilience comes from neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself under pressure. When one region is severely damaged, other areas can sometimes take over its functions, especially in young children whose brains are still highly flexible. Though limits certainly exist, these stories reveal an astonishing adaptability hidden within neural tissue. The brain is not rigid hardware with fixed roles. It is a flexible network capable of rerouting itself when under extreme pressure. Such survival defies intuition completely. We imagine the brain as fragile and delicate, yet it is also deeply robust and resilient, able to endure tremendous loss and still sustain the precious spark of consciousness against extraordinary odds. Fact 99. Your brain is the most complex known structure in the universe. Across the vast cosmos we find galaxies, nebulae, black holes and stars beyond counting. But nothing we know of anywhere rivals the intricate complexity of the human brain. It contains around 86 billion neurons tightly packed together. Each one connects to thousands of others, forming trillions of synapses. The number of possible connection patterns exceeds the number of atoms in the entire observable universe. Within this labyrinth lies consciousness itself, awareness, thought, memory, and imagination. No other known structure in existence packs so much density of function into such a small, confined space. The brain is not only a receiver of the world outside, it is a creator of inner worlds capable of art, science, and deep reflection. To call it complex feels woefully insufficient. It is a living universe of connections endlessly dynamic and evolving. As far as we know, no star system, no galaxy, no black hole rivals the profound mystery of what rests quietly inside your skull right now. A cosmos folded into soft flesh. Fact. 100. Your brain is still a mystery, and may always be. After centuries of dedicated study, the brain remains the most profound riddle in all of science. We can measure its chemistry with precision. We can map its circuits in stunning detail. We can even watch it light up in real time with advanced technology. Yet the central question remains unsolved. How do electrical pulses coursing through tissue give rise to the feeling of being alive? Consciousness, identity, imagination. These remain beyond complete explanation despite our best efforts. The more we uncover, the deeper the mystery seems to grow. Perhaps the brain is so complex it can never fully know itself, like a book that cannot read its own pages. And maybe that is fitting and beautiful. The brain gives rise to curiosity, wonder, and the urge to explore everything, including the mystery of its own existence. As you rest tonight, know that inside you is not just a biological organ. It is an unsolved enigma, vast as the cosmos itself, quietly working, dreaming, and glowing with secrets we may never fully understand.